Welcome to Getting to the Truth in This Art. I am your host, Rob Lee. And today, I am interviewing one of the co-founders of Mera Kitchen Collective, Aishah Alfadhalah. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Rob.
Thank you for coming on. So I want to get into the vitals here, the vital stats. What really brought you to Baltimore? Because I noticed that was you had a few stops along the way, as everyone does before they actually get in Baltimore and are like, hey, I want to do some change. It's like, cool, great. So, because like Baltimore is like almost like a city of like transients, but people stay because they're charmed. They're like, yeah, Baltimore's great. I'm going to be here. So what was your story in coming to Baltimore, and give us some of those like early like parts of building out Mera's Kitchen Collective?
So I was in Portland, Oregon before I came to Baltimore. I'm originally from Kuwait, so I moved here for college. Then I went to graduate school in Portland, Oregon, and then I was looking for jobs as everyone else. And Baltimore has vacancies. So I moved to Baltimore, for my job, but slowly, just from my experience, moving to a new country and I knew English, I had difficulty like making friends and just navigating my way. So when I got here, I made sure like I wanted to be involved in newcomers. So I started to be in the community and organically met the other co-founders, Emma Lerman, Iman Al-Shahab, like Lilian. And then I just remember meeting at Highlandtown Library. And I remember just sitting and like over, in the library and like mentioning the idea of doing a project together. Yeah. Because like we saw that food is a common experience across all of us. And then we're like, okay, let's try it. Let's start by having dinners at our houses. Yeah. And so I hosted dinner at my house and another 2 dinners at friends' houses. And we sold tickets to our friends and family, like $20, come eat a dinner, Yeah. So our friends and family came to those dinners. And they were like, okay, how about we approach a restaurant and try to kind of make a bigger dinner? And Hershey's Pizza, they were very generous to give us a space. And we hosted like 75 people for the first time. And the tickets sold out really fast. None of us really had much of a culinary experience in the U.S. Some of the people had experiences in different countries. But it's just a different system to navigate, and we were so naive. And then, another restaurant approached us and like, do you want to do a dinner? We did it with a Clavel, Hirsch's. And then slowly we're like, let's apply to the farmer's market. Yeah. By that time, we didn't have a car. We didn't have a kitchen. We didn't really own a pot. You know what I'm saying? So we applied. We're like, no, we're not going to get in.
We're potless.
Yeah. We're just going to try this year, and maybe try next year. And then we got in and we're like, oh, what are we going to do?
It's real now.
It's real now. Exactly. So we talked to the director of the farmer's market at that time, and she was generous to connect us. She was like, no, we were like, we're gonna meet up like a breakup. We can't take it. Maybe next year we'll try again. Yeah. And she was like, no, I believe in you. I was like, you don't know us. It's really nice that people believe in you more than you believe in yourself sometimes. Yeah. So she connected us to a kitchen that we can use, and we're from there. Yeah.
It's great. We're gonna make this happen. We're gonna figure this out. I like it, and it's kind of that drive of like it's up here. It's up here ultimately. It's like, we know what we're doing. This works. There's a proof of concept that was sitting there of like, look, we got 75 people to pull up, and
and what is nice about Baltimore, to be honest, like every person that we reached out to was like, from where do you get your containers, or what do you do with this, or where do you get your tent? And people were very like sharing resources, like all the other restaurants. So it wasn't like a feel of a competition. It was more like sense of community. I think that really helped us gain the experience and do things as the best we can.
That's great. And like, I love hearing when that community component is there. Like, people are looking out. It's like, yeah, man, well, this is where I get mines from. You can also get them from here. There's a few other places too. But if you want to be cheap, right? It's like, whoa, you're giving me the whole rundown. Like, do you have a book?
Exactly. Like, go to the restaurant store like really early in the morning, so there's not lines. Like, oh,
that's the best time.
Small things that make your life better.
Ask for Joey. he's got the good ones.
Yeah, ask for this person. Exactly.
So what does Mera, the word, mean, and how does it align with the values of the collective?
All right. So Mera comes from a Greek word that means smeraki. That means when you do something so passionately that you leave part of you in it. And that's aligned with our value as in creating a community, that we are all, our being is interweaved for our existence. And that's like what co-ops, that's why we chose to be a cooperative. Yeah. That means everybody has a voice and a share of the business. However, like, we need to acknowledge that we exist within the limits of capitalism. And we are working toward being a cooperative on paper, not only just like the culture, but, the limitations of like immigration, and people losing their Medicaid and the limitation of the industry that we're operating in.
I've seen like some businesses here locally have kind of bucked it, and it's like, look, we're a co-op now. We are employee owned. This is what it is. Like, I remember Tahaka Brothers, guest on the pod. I remember what is it? Joe Squared. Just like, we're shifting to this because it's proof that it works. Like, both of those and your place as well are examples. Like, you can do good stuff and do ultimately good business. So why are we sticking to this one structure? Why is this the only option? It's like, let's explore other options. That's, I don't know. That's just what pops in my head.
And that's like, people have been doing this for centuries. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a longer history than, in a sense of hierarchy, than like having it more aligned. Like, back home, where in Kuwait, 90% of grocery stores are co-ops.
Wow.
So it's very common, common structure.
Yeah, it's just, we're doing this way here because someone is benefiting that has nothing to do with this business.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like, we have to keep the wheel rolling, and I believe I'm becoming an anti-capitalist, but that's a different podcast. So it's a different conversation for a different podcast. So speak on the mission of Mera Kitchen Collective, and like, describe what makes story-worthy food. See, I was reading things.
So food is, as you mentioned, food is like an emotional experience. It takes us to like a train of our memories. That's how I look at it. Take you to grandparents' house. When is the first time you tried saffron rice? Or when is the first time you tried sushi? It takes you to an experience, to connection with another person, and that what makes it worth it. Yeah. It's a time where you, like, in all of our cultures, like, where we sit and pause and talk over food and pass the table and pass the plates. So it's like a ritual that I think is that we should honor, and it has a lot of stories that are embedded in it, and that's what we try to share in at Mera.
Yeah, I think I look back at some of my favorite meals. I remember the first time that I tried, like, I guess, Indian food here was this restaurant called Kumari, and my girlfriend is named Kumari, and so that right there, self-serve. I was like, "Do you own the place?" And I was like, "Let me know." Like, and I remember on occasion I have panic attacks, and I had a really bad one that day, and they kind of just take me out, and I'm always kind of like, gun shy, like, I don't want to do anything. I don't. So I turned to a big baby. It's not great. It's ugly. It's not great. I'm a big baby. Anyway, she came back and she got Indian food, and that was the first time I tried it, and it was like chicken biryani, naan, like samosas. The first time I had any of this stuff, and I was like, yo, this is health food. She's like, I don't know if that's true. I was like, the spices is great. It was feeling like being reborn. That's what it felt like. So when I'm having that meal, the components of that meal, it takes me to not necessarily the panic attack, obviously, but that if I'm feeling bad or if I'm having like one of those days or if I've had a panic attack, that might be the meal that I'm looking for because I've had that good mood and I have a story connected to it.
Exactly. Like basically, like it reminded you of a person showing up for you, showing their love through food.
Yeah.
It connected and made you question like what is the spices. I mean, you understand like what is Indian cuisine, what made you question. So
and I'm a food nerd.
A vehicle.
And I'm a food nerd as well. So if you say, "Hey, Rob, try this," I'm like, "Oh, this is good. What else you got?" It's like
and there's a good food scene in Baltimore.
Yeah. So this is actually a funny question. Some folks have bland palates and think, oh my, cumin is so experimental. Tell us about the balance of marrying global foods to this market here. As you touched on, we're a food city, I think. But I don't think we're a chef city. We're a food city. I think people want to try different things, but some of the palates aren't the most adventurous. Like mine isn't. I'll try anything. It's like, give it to me, put it on a plate. So how do you marry those two things?
So we really struggled with that one, especially initially. We usually encourage full expression of our chefs. Like we don't want to tone the expression down or tweak it just because of the recipient cannot appreciate it. It's like, and food is like something you get used to. So in the farmers market, when we first started, like we give samples and I used to say, oh, sambusa is like cheese stick. You know what I'm saying? It's like something that's fried, something familiar.
Yeah. I
try to find something familiar to kind of as a bridge to make the person at least try it.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people shut it down before even trying it. So I think, and again, I think every food attracts different sets of people and different audience, and you just trying to get the fruit that is willing to try.
Yeah, I think I from my vantage point, there's a fair amount of xenophobia, especially even in something like food, something as kind of common as food. And it's like, what I think Mera does is you can have a plate that has various areas represented. It's like, look, I want some of these over here in this corner. It's like an international Thanksgiving plate in many ways to me that you could ultimately do. And, as a person that I look back maybe 10, 15, probably 15 years ago, I was like, I don't know what hummus is. And I was like, I think I'm all set. And then when I had, I was like, all right, this is good. Now I'm like, yeah, where's the red pepper hummus? Y'all got some chips? This is great. And it's a dive, or even sushi, right? And not knowing anything about it, hearing what someone else's take on it, other than having an entry point. And I like what you said there of this is like this is the bridge. And as the cowboy for my family, look, you got to try this. This is good. I don't know. I don't think it's going to be good. I was like, I assure you, it is going to be good. I know that your palates are this is going to work. How many different countries' cuisines are represented in the collective? And has there been any fusion that's we're going to do a little bit of this. We're going to have maybe these spices. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So now we have from Syria, Burkina Faso, Salvador, Honduras, Mexico. So these are the 5 countries that we have now. And we have done infusions. And our first dish that we came up with was saffron rice, which is Middle Eastern Syrian, and smoked saffron rice. And with DG, which is a Cameroonian dish, which has plantains and vegetables, which I never thought I would mix these two, but it was a very popular hit and it's still one of my favorite dishes. However, our Cameroonian chef have moved to Morocco a while ago. So currently we do some infusions the hortacha, and also chefs within themselves figure kind of play in the kitchen. You know what I'm saying? The hortacha is something in common in Latin food. But when we realized we have it in the Middle East too, in the way but we add rose water to it.
Yeah.
But it's like, oh, it's kind of very similar to what we have. It just like add one ingredient or take one ingredient out.
Yeah.
Also, another thing we have created in the kitchen is like shawarma fried chicken. Like one of the people were like frying chicken, and then another person was like, oh, what about if we do it like marinated with the shawarma way, and then we fry it? And our baker was like, oh, how about I make like a special bun to it, za'atar bun? I was like, oh, and it was a big hit too.
Oh my, this is, I'm sure people can hear me. It's like, can you stop drooling, Rob? That sounds delicious. I love when, like, some people have like fusions and things of that nature have a really weird like reputation. I think it speaks on like creativity. I think it speaks to if you're doing it right and paying homage to the cultures that it comes from and the people that are there. If the people that are there and this is representative of their lineage, their history, their background, they have a relation to the food, then why not? I mean, I don't want somebody that has no relation to the food and is like, I think this is cool, so this with this, you got to have some story.
I agree, and it reflects their relationship, and that's why we see in the kitchen, like when people first meet each other, there is not much infusion because they're building that relationship. They're just trying each other's food, and then after a year or two of being comfortable, then it's like people feel comfortable. Like, oh, what do you think if we mix this with that?
Mm. I like that. That's like musicians playing together. It's like, yeah, we're going to do a little improv here.
Right.
So tell me about your work as a cultural broker and the importance of exchange of cultural backgrounds through food.
I really did not know how to label what I do in the kitchen. So I was like, oh, what do they call this? The person who translates, but really translate the meanings of things. And also, like, I work as a translator at my job. So constantly, like, we know sometimes you cannot translate the exact words because people in different cultures, like, the words have different meanings. So you're always kind of trying to understand what the person is saying. And by a culture broker, I kind of translate between the team. But also, it's like, oh, what does this person mean when they do this? And as I mentioned, like, I had to kind of work on bridging, okay, you're doing this authentic thing that represents of your culture, but how can I bridge it to somebody, a consumer, or who is very different from your culture?
Yeah.
So I'm constantly learning. I really enjoy doing it. I'm learning about the person and how to translate the idea in the best possible way, and kind of bridge that relationship. And then it's just like an introduction when the people kind of meet and they're just organically kind of goes by itself.
That's great. It's great. I always look back, especially with the broader like group of people that I've been interviewing in this podcast. I always have to look back at like just courses I took in college, like, you know, cross-cultural communication, international business, things like that, because everything is different and it's like broader than, well, the culture in Baltimore is this, you know, my personal culture is this. It's like, I try to be early for an interview. I try to do this. Some people are like, look, I'm going to get on 20 minutes late because that's what I do. And it's like, what? And then you find out, like, that's not a shot at you. That's not a besmirchment of you. That's just like, look, culturally, this is just what I do. It's like, all right, cool. I understand that now. So I think it gives just a little bit more levity and bandwidth to people sometimes if you at least go into it trying to understand. And it's like, so what are we doing? You know, just wanted to know.
Exactly. Yeah. And this role like organically happened because I speak Arabic, English, and Spanish. So I was like, I'm always in the middle. I'm like, what does this person mean? Why is this happening?
It would be great if you were like talking with one person and it's like, oh, okay, hold on, what's the language? Hold on, what am I saying here? Okay, I didn't use that. Oh man, what am I doing here?
Sometimes I talk to the wrong person. I use the wrong language with the wrong person, you know?
That's like, great. I mean, I would imagine it's not great, but it would be funny. It's like, all right, I need to describe what you mean here, but I have to like think about it. I worked in a Spanish call center at one time, and I just remember it was like it was two people on the staff. One person was from Guatemala, and the rest of the staff would make fun of him because he failed like the Spanish exam there. And he's like, I'm a fluent speaker. I'm a native speaker. And he was like, well, your Spanish isn't as good as our Spanish. It's like, this is great. I was like, this is really funny. So I heard that food is a piece of home. I agree with that. And a reflection of where you're from and where you're going. People are always looking for home, looking for connection. So what's been the response to the Mera?
It's from the community has been, we always have focus. Before COVID, we were always focusing on like communal dinners where like strangers would be seated next to each other, and that kind of cultivating that environment that supports community. However, when COVID happened, that's definitely had changed. So we hope to get back to that in the sense of, and that's when we just had we're opened our own spot on Calvert, and it's Wednesday to Friday currently for lunch. And the main thing, like when we're designing this space, we're like, the most important thing is to have a big communal table where people have to sit next to each other, have to talk to the person next to them. And I think we lost that as a culture. We exist in very isolated, individualistic culture. However, now our survival is more dependent on mutual aid and community than governments. So it's and especially for us, the majority of us come from collective culture. So it's like a piece of home. When we think about big plates, shared plates, my culture, we eat from the same plates. That teaches you consideration. Like, am I eating all of the food before the other person? It teaches you like how it's like communication.
Yeah. I mean, I totally agree or have you. Like, it's really uncommon, that communal component here, but it's not, I think when it's presented, I tend not to shy away from it, but it's like, when I do this, like initially when I'm doing this podcast, it would just be blank screens, just talking. I was like, there is no connection here. So, I mean, when the opportunity presents itself, I try to do it in person because it's just a different energy. It's an exchange. It's something more. So eventually, I'm going to come down there and like, hey, what we got here? What's the foods? I'm going to take this whole table. I'm going to be inconsiderate because I'm a very greedy individual. It's like, yo, give me all of it. Just all of it. What breads do you have? More, But I think that's what people crave. And early on in the pandemic, it's funny. When the shutdowns were happening and all that stuff, there was on Instagram, someone hit me and went live, and they were from Spain. And I was like, I don't speak Spanish. How's this going to go? And he's like, hey, man, Rob. I was like, huh. And I don't know why I answered, by the way, but I guess just the spirit got me. And he was like, man, just loving it, man, loving the podcast. I was like, you're listening to the podcast here? And he's like, one of my friends looks just like you. And he shows me like an Asian dude who looks a lot like me. I was like, look, y'all trolling me. That was kind of the thing. And but it was just this desire. It's like, man, we're doing really well here. I hope you're safe there. And it was this international kind of check-in from someone I've never known, but it was cool. And it was weird, but it made my morning. Right.
That somebody else in the world thought about you, that they don't really want anything from you.
Yeah, because we do a lot of that here. And that's the thing that I kind of struggle sometimes here with doing this podcast and being involved in various communities and having a desire to connect with people. You want to avoid things that feel like it's a transaction. You want to avoid things that feel like there's not a community building, or at least the notion of, hey, I acknowledge you exist as a person. I like what you do. That's literally what this comes out. So when I was asked, who do you pick? How do you pick the people? It's like, do I like what someone's doing? Do I admire what they're doing? And do I want to know more about it? That's literally 1, 2, 3 checks, and then let's do the interview. Right.
Curiosity, basically.
Yeah. And curiosity and like admiration, because it's like, I can be curious, but it's like, I don't like what you do, but I like what you all are doing. So what does growth look like for Mera Kitchen Collective?
Growth for us looks at investing in our members. in the sense of their skills, in the sense of we can increase the income of individuals. We know like the food industry still like not making a livable wage yet. So we strive to share financial wealth with the members, have our space open for Baltimore, for the community, do collaborations, having it more than just a place where you eat and you leave, but in a building space that kind of encourage building community. So we hope to open more hours, do more programming, as you know, hopefully we can in the next months if things get better.
Yes. And because there's been like I don't know, like I was doing this list today of Rob's top 10 of just like various places, and I wanted to do one, and I'm probably going to do one a little later today of just like do-gooders, and like everything that I've seen with Mera has just been just doing good stuff within the community. And you know, it was one of those things where I was like, I wasn't sure initially, like, what is this? I was like, okay, there's food, they're doing stuff in the community, these are like good people, what's happening here? But just like really saying, all right, that's all I needed to know. Good stuff is happening and food is involved. And, you know, and what I'm hearing there, that's just within the ethos. That's within the mission of what you all are doing. Mm-hmm. Let's see. All right. Okay. Yeah. This is, you already answered this one. So I guess I can go into rapid fire. You answer all my, see, you're an overachiever. You know what? You're an overachiever. You've answered all of my real questions. So now I'm going to get into my fake questions.
Okay.
All right. So my fake questions they're rapid fire questions. And essentially, these rapid fire questions are, they might be like, what's your favorite movie? It might be something like that. Right. And essentially, if you want to add depth to it, any extra context, you can, but you don't necessarily have to. Okay. All right. What was your last Google search?
Artificial clouds. You know, I never seen that machine creates artificial clouds. That's
the greatest answer to that question I've had. I was looking up artificial clouds. Moving on. What are 3 words that describe your work? What are 3 words that come to mind when you think about your work with Mera, or more broadly? What are 3 words that come to mind?
I would say listening. I would put 2 of those, and the community. Okay.
You listen twice. Like it's like measure twice, cut once. It's like I listen twice.
Because that feels like one of those words that you keep tripping on, you know?
Yeah. Okay. When you're in the kitchen, right? Mm-hmm. What are you listening to? Is it music, audiobooks, podcasts, or is it silence? Is it silence in the kitchen?
No, it's definitely not silence.
I would hope so. I was like, yeah, no. It's actually too much music. It's a lot of talking and a lot of music.
It's lots of music and lots of talking too.
Yeah. I like whenever this is how I can tell whether the food is good. If it's silence, like, nah, it's not good. There's no collaboration happening. So food is foundational, right? What are 3 ingredients that are always in your home kitchen?
I would say cumin, cardamom, and saffron.
Okay, you're spending money. I heard the saffron. I was like, okay, with the red magic.
Like a dash of it once in a while.
It's like,
I bring it from home too, so it's different.
That would be great. It's like, this is going to be an expensive. I remember it was one time my dad stumbled across some saffron that was in his car. He was like, this was $40. He was like, what is this? I was like, what are you going to use?
Gold. Right.
Okay. Lastly, what is your motto? Like your motto when you interact with people? And I feel like it might be listen, and community, but what is your motto when you interact within the community, when you interact within this world? It could be just as a person or as a person within Mera, but what does that look like for you?
I really enjoy like having conversations with people. So it's like whenever I'm walking, I try to strike a conversation, or even the bus. You know what I'm saying? There's so many interesting people around us that I think we don't know how to access. Yeah. I think it's all about the right question to have the right conversation. So that's my motto, is to explore, to be kind of open. And again, like having a conversation is like one of the most top things that brings me joy.
That actually put a smile on my face. This rugged phase now has a smile on it, because I like that. That's great. I think, conversation. That's a thing that it's a lost art, actually.
I agree.
So I don't have any more questions for you. You took all of them. You ran through all of them. But I want to invite you and thank you. Actually, I want to thank you, first of all, for being on this podcast and sharing more about you, more about Mera Kitchen Collective. But also, I want to invite you to plug away. Tell us about the website, social media, all of that good stuff. And yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. So people can follow us we are on Instagram, Facebook. Well, our website is mera.kitchen. We have a holiday sale coming up, and hopefully in the New Year's will be more open. We do catering and to go and a sit down service.
So there you have it. So for Aishah Alfadhalah of Mera Kitchen Collective, I'm Rob Lee, saying that there is food and community in and around Baltimore. You just got to look for it.